What's up, guys? Just taking a drive to the gym. Got a bit of time to talk, so I figured I'd do a little explanation on the corrupting influence of power and how the world works and why most people are unable to see and accept the absolute evil in the world, because it's just unbelievably evil and inconceivably evil. And a lot of people laugh at the notion that a lot of this evil is going on because they don't understand. They're looking at the world through the lens of their own moral compass, and they assume that because the evil is outrageous and outlandish to them, that is outlandish to a lot of these other people. And there's a quote by Lord Acton that has probably been as much, if not the most informative in forming my view of the world. And Lord Acton said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Corrupts absolutely. So think about that word, absolutely. You are absolutely corrupt. Thoroughly corrupt. You couldn't be more corrupt when you have absolute power. And we tend to think that there's that power changes hands in Western democracies, but it doesn't, because the people that we elect, or the people who are the figureheads, the ones on the camera, they're not the ones in power. And it's too much to go into now, but essentially it might go back further than this. But Lord Rothschild, during one of the Napoleonic Wars, the British were fighting Napoleon somewhere. It's been too long since I've heard the story. I don't remember the exact details, but it was the British Army versus Napoleon, I believe. And the British Army had defeated Napoleon. One of Rothschild's agents rode back to Britain and spread news that the British Army had lost. He lied. And that put the British population into a panic, and their stock market collapsed. And then Rothschild, who was very wealthy, bought up the entire British economy for pennies on the dollar. And that is how their financial dynasty was created, or really, really firmly established. And these people have amounts of money that are absolutely, they have godlike power, because not only do they have trillions of dollars in actual wealth, not only do they own all of the important properties, all the important institutions, but they, they created the central banks, which gave them the extra governmental power, because they're not part of the government. The Federal Reserve is neither federal, nor does it have any reserves. It is not. It's like a quasi-governmental entity, and the governmental oversight is a facade. It's not. They don't really tell the Fed what to do. The Fed tells them what to do. And the money powers are the real powers, and they are apolitical. You can't vote them out. You cannot influence them with your vote, with your politicians. They own the politicians. The politicians work for them, not for you. And they've been in power for generations, and generations and generations, going back. If you pay attention to your David Icke and others, their bloodline families go way back to Babylon, and maybe even earlier. All of these major, world figures, the real power players, the Clintons, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they're all related. They all share ancestry, going back thousands of years. So absolute power corrupts absolutely, and these people have had absolute power generation over generation, so that they were born into power. They were born into absolute power and absolutely being absolutely corrupted, so that they don't have any human connection, especially to you. You're ants in an ant farm to them. You know, the famous Stalin quote, "One death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic." And that's how they feel about you. You're nobody, you're nothing. They're literally in hell. They have no connection to spirit. They are dead inside, and they get off on doing the most debauched things imaginable, the most corrupt things imaginable. It turns them on, like they can do the most horrible, awful things imaginable and get away with it, because they've been in power for that long, and they've had absolute power for that long, and they have been absolutely corrupted for that long. So you are not like them, and they are not like you. They are not even human beings, and they'll tell you so. They bragged about they bragged about doing to you what they've done to you through the food, through the injections, through the fake education, turning you into almost a subspecies of human to them. And they believe that because you are a subspecies of human, that they have the authority, the moral authority to treat you as a subspecies, the way humans treat cattle, or just cattle. You're cattle. You're tax cattle, right? Everybody knows this, but it gets even more evil than that. I'm not a Trump person, not a Trump fan, but he has recently brought to light the fact that through the globalist herding like cattle, third world migrants from South and Central America, like several hundred thousands of actual children, not just people, several hundred thousand children, like enough to fill 3.5 football stadiums, have been sold into slavery, and many of those into sex slavery, and many of those have probably been brutally murdered, because that's what these people do. That's what they are. And it's inconceivable to you to harm a child in that way, because you have not had your morals corrupted by generations of absolute power, of never having a human connection with other people, just born of monsters. And then you become a monster because that's all you ever know. It's like it's like the nature or nurture thing. We all have God and the devil in us, and it depends on a lot of it depends on nurture. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Tarzan. You're raised by apes, you're an ape. You're a human. You know what I mean? Like, so these people have been raised by demons, and not to say that it's not possible to be raised by demons and and somehow find the kingdom of heaven inside of you, because it's countless stories. It's relatively rare in the aggregate, but it's still, many people have been born into trauma. Like many, you see it all the time where you've got siblings, and most of them maybe take on the characteristics and the trauma of their parents, and then there's that one person that just transcends it. So not to say it's not possible, but it's very difficult when all you are ever exposed to is evil and corruption, and the idea that might makes right, and the will to power rules, and that's what these people believe in. That's That's the real Luciferian creed, philosophy. Is not worshiping Satan. There's the useful idiot Satanists that, sacrifice chickens in the graveyard to Satan and blah, blah, blah. But it's really difficult driving in this town. But those are like the useful idiot, layman, profane Satanists. The real elite Satanists worship the will to power, the ego unleashed. If it feels good, do it. And because they have all the power, they can do whatever they want, and nobody can do anything about it. And if if you were born into that kind of, I don't want to call it freedom, but what is anybody going to do about what you're doing? Nothing. Nobody. Like, they own all the institutions that can hold them accountable. So there's nobody that can hold them accountable. So they do whatever they want, and they've been like that for generations. So they don't know how to act properly. They don't have empathy. It's gone. They're black-hearted. They're dead inside. So, don't think that you can relate to these kind of people, because they don't relate to you. And that's where the true evil comes from, because they're fully corrupted, absolutely corrupted. They're corrupted down to the soul level. They're not just thieves, and they're not just, they don't just like drop bombs on people. They rape babies, and they drink their blood. And the worst things that you could possibly imagine a human being doing, they do it. And they do it wearing $10,000 suits in lavish mansions. You look at Jeffrey Epstein. What was Jeffrey Epstein doing? Who's on Jeffrey Epstein's black book? All of the elites, the Clintons, Kevin Spacey, all of Hollywood, all the entertainers are there, because he was there to get them to do terrible, awful things and put it on video, so that they had blackmail over those people and that they would do whatever they want. Same thing with Bohemian Grove. You got a bunch of homosexual prostitutes running around. You're doing homosexual acts. Hey, you want to be president? You got to do the deed, and it'll be on video, and then we'll hold it over you. And these days, they could just put child pornography onto your computer if they don't like you. But so that's how the world works. And if you think that the whole adrenochrome and the Pizzagate thing sounds ridiculous, and that's probably because your incredulity is based on the fact that you think that these people are human like you are, and they're just not. They're just not. They are fully mentally and spiritually corrupted, and the spiritual corruption is the real issue. Because it takes total, full spiritual death to be able to do the things that they do, and they're doing it. Whether you think they're doing it or not, you can laugh about it all you want. But like I said, there's over 300,000 children just in the last 4 years have disappeared. I got a message for you. For you libertarian people who don't believe in borders. I don't believe in borders either. And I believe that my right to restrict movement ends at my property line, as is the correct moral, philosophical view of property rights. Countries cannot own property legitimately, because everything they own is either stolen or purchased with stolen wealth. So they have no right to enforce a border. But the fact that these governments and these globalist entities, the Soros and the foundations, the NGOs, the UN, destroyed these third world countries in South and Central America with the war on drugs and COVID lockdowns, and then started giving them money and telling them to come to America. And now you've got apartment buildings being occupied by Venezuelan gangs, and the police are just like, what are we supposed to do? Well, I mean, you could do your job, but I got news for you. I'm not saying you have to support there being a border, because I still don't support it, but you could at least oppose the government herding people here like cattle and selling their children into slavery and sex slavery. and many of them were killed. I guarantee it. Many of them were killed brutally. And again, if you don't believe that, then you don't know your enemy. And like Sun Tzu says, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And most people don't know themselves, they don't know their enemy, and they're just laughing at the whole thing and blowing the whole thing off, watching football. We're on the cusp of World War III and full economic collapse, nuclear war, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's a week till football season. So, anyway, I get off on a little tangent there, but that is something that you really need to really meditate on. The corrupting influence of power, the spiritual corruption that it causes when you have the kind of power that these people have. And you're just a regular guy, you just want to go to, or girl, you just want to go to work and raise your children and live a normal life. These people never had to do that. They never had to go to work. They never had to worry about their children. You know, they've got nannies raising their children, or worse. You know, if you're Joe Biden, you're raping your daughter in the shower. You know, those sorts of things. You know, and everybody knows that these people are pedophiles. Everybody knows that Bill Clinton went to Epstein Island so he can rape, you know, young girls. Everybody knows Joe Biden's a pedophile. He basically, I mean, his own son calls him Pedo Joe. And like he's got room to talk. He's on video in his laptop having sexual relations with his underage niece. And again, I mean, really think about it. This is what I'm talking about. These people are corrupted, absolutely. They are evil, absolute. They are spiritually dead. So, and you're not like them. And don't think that you're like them. In the very least, you probably have some issues that you need to deal with. But you might have some narcissism. You might be a little self-centered, but you've never had the money and the power that these people have, and you cannot relate to them. I can't even relate to them. I know what they're doing, and I know why. But you know, I have, you know, I just have to look at the reality of the situation. You know, and how could they do such evil things? And it goes back to that Lord Acton quote. They have been in power. They've had absolute power for generations, and it has absolutely corrupted them at a spiritual level. So that's what's happened. That's the world we live in. And you know, these are the kind of people who, you know, it's so weird to grow up in the Cold War. We had this thing called mutually assured destruction, where, you know, you were pretty much, you know, nuclear war was a scary prospect, but you had you were, you know, consoled basically by the fact that, you know, nobody's insane enough to actually start a nuclear war. The worst that could happen is it happens accidentally or by a misunderstanding. But I genuinely think right now, with what they're doing with Russia, and thank God Putin is not an absolute maniac, because they are prodding that guy. They're saying, what are you going to do about it? You're going to nuke us? Go ahead and nuke us. And people are acting like, you know, like nuclear war isn't the worst thing that can happen, because they're corrupted absolutely, and they don't care if they burn the whole world down. They'll rule over the ashes. They want to get rid of most of us anyway. I mean, you know, that's something they've been bragging about, and you blew that off as well. Like, oh, they want to reduce the population to 500 million people. Ho ho ho! Like, you know, like, it's hilarious. And they said they were going to do it. That's the worst part when I make these kind of videos is, like, you know, I'm not telling you an opinion. I'm not, like, I have you know, I could show you their white papers and their quotes where they say they want to do all the things that they're doing and that they've done, and everybody thinks that it's just coming from my own imagination. You know, that's cognitive dissonance, because if you accepted and faced the evil that we are confronted with, you couldn't watch football. You couldn't, you know, you wouldn't worry about your pension and your retirement. You would have to say, hey, this is the time that tries men's souls, and you would realize that there are fates worse than death. And you would realize that, ignoring this now only makes it, only puts the responsibility onto your children and future generations, and it'll be harder for them to deal with it. So, something to think about, guys. And I don't even know if I could say we're running out of time. We may have already run out of time. I used to say during COVID, a lot of you people are trying to get into a race that has already been ran. The starting gun went off, the medals have been handed out, and then you're like, all right, I'm ready to run. I'm ready to fight. Like, it's over. It was especially over after people just didn't say no en masse, because they closed down hundreds of thousands of businesses forever, and the rot from that is only now starting to take place. And Trump is not going to save you on that. I mean, the only way he could save it is just to abolish everything. Every governmental agency that stifles the free market and let the market correct itself, which it would, there would be unbelievable freedom, if not for government stifling it. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. I'm about to go inside and work out. I don't want to dispel your hope. I don't want to, but hope is meaningless if you're just sitting on your ass watching football, because that's a cultural indoctrination where you just, the hero always saves the day. The hero is you. No one's going to save you but you. There's no Neo, there's no Superman, there's no Batman, there's no savior. Jesus ain't coming to save you. Even if all these things were, you can't just assume it's going to happen. And that's the trick that we've been subjected ourselves to, that evil just doesn't win, so we don't have to worry about it. Evil does win, and evil is winning right now. They put these people into power who are bumbling imbeciles, so you think they're just a bunch of idiots, and that the whole thing is just benign stupidity. No, it's evil geniuses. Your president, your Kamala Harris, your Congress people, your Nancy Pelosi, these people aren't in power. These people aren't in control. They're put on the TV so that you can laugh at them and mock them. Meanwhile, the money powers behind them are extraordinarily educated in psychological warfare, trauma-based mind control, and if you don't know yourself, they know you better than you know yourself, and they control you like a marionette. So, I keep going on and on. I gotta go work out. I love you guys.